Okay, get this. What if one of the best ways to protect your brain from something like Alzheimer's wasn't about your brain at all, but about what's in your breakfast bowl? It sounds a little wild, I know, but today we're diving into a special kind of dietary fiber called beta glucan, and it has this absolutely incredible and honestly kind of surprising connection to brain health. And that right there, that's the central puzzle, isn't it? It just seems impossible. I mean, how can a simple fiber, something that's doing its job way down in your digestive system, possibly have an impact on a complex disease that's happening deep inside the most protected organ in your entire body? And this quote from a group of researchers really just nails the problem. They knew that beta glucan literally can't get into the brain. There's this super tight security system, right? It's called the blood-brain barrier. It just plain blocks it. So, if the beta glucan can't get past the bouncer, how is it affecting the party inside? Well, their best guess, their hypothesis, was that it wasn't acting alone. It was using an intermediary, our gut microbes. So, to figure this all out, we first have to get to know our main character a little better. Because it turns out, beta glucan isn't just one single thing. Nope, it's actually a whole family of different fibers. So what is it? Put simply, beta-glucan is just a type of soluble fiber, and you find it all over the place, in the cell walls of really common foods. We're talking everything from the oats in your morning oatmeal and the barley in your soup to all kinds of mushrooms and even baker's yeast. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all beta-glucans are created equal. You can see here, based on work from Hu and their colleagues, that the source really changes the chemical structure. So you've got yeast and mushrooms, which have this kind of branched, more complex structure. Then you have cereal grains like oats and barley, and theirs is more of a straight linear chain. Now these little structural differences really matter, because they affect how these fibers actually work inside our bodies. Okay, so if the fiber itself isn't making it to the brain, there has to be some kind of secret pathway, right? And it turns out there is. It's this incredible communication superhighway that connects our gut directly to our brain. And that highway has a name. It's called the gut-brain axis. I want you to think of it like a biological messaging service. It's this constant, two-way chatter happening between the trillions of tiny microbes living in your gut and your central nervous system. So yeah, what happens in the gut definitely does not stay in the gut. So here's the play-by-play. You eat some beta-glucan, but your body itself can't digest it. So it travels all the way down to your colon, and that's where the magic happens. It basically becomes a feast for your gut microbes. Those little guys ferment it, and in the process, they produce all these amazing beneficial molecules. We call them metabolites. The most famous ones are short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. Now, these little molecules are small enough to slip into your bloodstream. And once they're there, they travel all over your body, acting like these little anti-inflammatory messengers that can cool down inflammation system-wide, and that includes, indirectly, in the brain. So, that's the theory. It makes sense, right? But what's the actual proof? Well, for that, we need to look at a whole bunch of really fascinating preclinical studies that were done in animal models. And you know what? The conclusion is remarkably consistent across the board. It doesn't matter if the beta-glucan came from yeast, or from oats, or from mushrooms. In study after study, the results in mice and rats that have Alzheimer's-like conditions all point in the exact same direction. Things get better. This chart is a perfect example. What we're looking at here is microglial activation, which is basically a fancy way of saying the brain's immune cells are on high alert. It's a key sign of inflammation. You can see in the Alzheimer's model mice that inflammation is way up. But look what happens when you introduce beta-glucan from either oats or mushrooms. Wow, it drops a lot. And this is a pattern scientists saw over and over again in these animal studies. And the benefits weren't just in one area. I mean, across all these studies, scientists saw a drop in the classic hallmarks of Alzheimer's. You know, those sticky amyloid plaques and tangled tau proteins that really gum up the works in brain cells. They also saw less brain inflammation, and, maybe most importantly, the animals actually got better at memory and cognitive tests. It even seemed to help strengthen the physical barrier of the gut itself. And just to add another layer of, scientific credibility here, these results weren't just found in one type of model. Some studies used mice that are literally genetically programmed to develop Alzheimer's. Others took healthy animals and induced the symptoms, maybe with a high-fat diet or something similar. The fact that the positive effects showed up across all these different models, that makes the findings way more robust. So, we have a theory for how it works, and we have a ton of evidence showing a positive effect. But now we get to the really crucial part, the smoking gun. How do we prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it's the gut microbes doing all the work? Because this is the question, right? This is what separates just a cool correlation from actual causation. Is it possible the beta-glucan is having some other kind of weird, unknown direct effect on the body? Or is it really, truly all about the microbes? Well, to answer that, researchers designed two incredibly clever experiments that were specifically designed to isolate the role of the gut. The first one was just a simple, almost elegant test of removal. So in this experiment, a team led by Shi gave one group of these special Alzheimer's mice some beta-glucan, and just as they expected, their cognition improved. But then, with a second group, they gave them the beta-glucan plus a strong cocktail of antibiotics to completely wipe out all their gut bacteria. And the results? Poof. The cognitive benefits were just gone. They completely vanished. No microbes, no effect. Case closed, right? Well, as this quote from another major study suggests, having that healthy, intact gut flora seems to be the absolute key factor. And that leads us to the second and, well, maybe even more definitive experiment. Okay, now this is the real smoking gun. This is just brilliant science. Researchers took one group of Alzheimer's model mice and fed them beta-glucan. Then they collected the gut microbes from those mice. And here's the kicker. They transferred those trained microbes into a second group of mice, a group that never ate a single bite of beta-glucan. And what happened? Incredibly, the recipient mice showed the exact same cognitive improvements and reduced brain information. This proves it. The benefit isn't from the fiber directly, it's what the fiber does to the microbes. The benefits are literally transferable. This proof from the animal studies is just, it's so powerful. But it brings us to the biggest and, let's be honest, the most important question of all. I mean, the evidence in mice and rats is truly, truly compelling. It's a rock-solid foundation of preclinical work. But we're not mice, are we? Does any of this actually hold up for humans? And this is where we have to be really clear and responsible. As of right now, pretty much all of the strong, direct evidence we've talked about comes from these animal studies. The big human clinical trials looking specifically at beta-glucan for Alzheimer's, they're really just getting started. But there are some really tantalizing clues out there from population studies. For example, one big study noticed that older adults who ate more mushrooms, which are a great source of beta-glucan, remember, had a lower risk of developing mild cognitive impairment. Now, that's not definitive proof, but it's a very, very promising sign. So after digging through all of this research, what's the big takeaway here? What does the future of brain health maybe look like on our plates? Well, this entire body of work really suggests that one of the most powerful things we can do for our brains might just be to feed the trillions of little guys living in our gut. It completely reframes how we think about brain health, right? It moves the focus from being just about what's in our head to this entire gut-brain system. And it leaves us with this really fascinating question to think about. Could a simple bowl of oatmeal every day really be a powerful strategy for a healthier brain down the road? The science is really starting to suggest it just might be.